We are gonna talk about the differences between Canada and US today. So ارین, let's talk about you. Who are you and where do you from and why you are here in Canada?
Okay, well, that sounds good. So I am originally from the U.S., but I was born in New York. But I grew up mostly in Nashville and Tennessee, so in the southeast.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived there for most of my life, and then I did my undergrad in environmental science, still in Tennessee, but in the west of Tennessee. And then after that, I actually moved to Germany for a job.
Oh, good.
I was there for like almost 3 years, and that's when I came to Canada after. So I haven't lived in the U.S. in like over 6 years now. Yeah.
So you also have some experiences in German also. That's good.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, and what I really like, actually, I'll start speaking about Canada maybe now, because was for me, especially Quebec, like it has all the things that I liked about being in Europe in terms of like the healthcare, education is more similar than the U.S.
Yeah.
But it still is in North America, and still I can get like some of the same things that I could in the US, and I'm closer to my family, so that was kind of my motivation.
You optimize the location.
Exactly. But I should say I'm also Canadian, so my mom is from Montreal.
Oh, good.
So even though
I never know that.
Yeah, I never lived in Canada until I moved here for like to go to McGill. But I would come like every year with my mom when I was a kid. So I always knew Montreal as like the city, and I always knew I wanted to come here sometime.
Sometime at the
end. I just didn't know when. Yeah.
Okay, good. So, continuously, is this your second year that you're living in Montreal?
So I actually came in 2021.
Okay, so third year.
Yeah. So the master's will be 3 years for me.
Okay, and how many cities have you visited in Canada?
So I've only lived in Montreal, but I've visited Quebec City, Ottawa, Toronto, but very briefly, and that's all of the like big major cities.
Okay.
I haven't been out east, and I haven't been out to BC or Alberta or anything.
Okay. For example, in daily life here in Montreal, or I don't know, all the places in Canada, we can see that when you want to pass a crossroad, car waits for you. Know, people are more patient here in comparison with Iran. So do you feel this kind of patience here in comparison with the US, or they are similar?
I definitely know what you mean, and here it feels I definitely feel like much more relaxed just when I'm out in the city than I do, say, if I go to New York City. It's just a completely different like atmosphere, and people are generally like very nice to strangers, like in a cafe. I mean, it is a little bit different, I think, in Quebec specifically, just for me, because I don't speak French, so that's also another interesting element to add, because like still you feel a bit like an outsider just because you're not speaking the main language. But even with that, like, people are very accommodating, and many people speak English. Yeah. So I do find that there is some tension, but only like it's only language driven, I would say.
Your healthcare. What about the healthcare here and US?
So this is actually, I think, one of the most important or one of the biggest differences between the two countries, and it's really like important to me right now, because here I'm finishing my master's, so I soon will be like unemployed. Unless I find a job in like soon. But here it's okay. I can kind of just hang around, and I will still have healthcare. Okay. Like I'm not feeling like so stressed about that. But if I wanted to go to the U.S., I would need to have a job that would supply me with healthcare, because I couldn't just move there with no job.
So if do you mean that if you don't have any job, you just have two options? One option is that a private insurance that you are paying a lot of money for that, and the other one is that you don't have insurance and you should pay for any kinds of expense in hospital. And
exactly. Okay. Like one example is maybe there as just like it's just kind of like a fun job that I was looking at. There's like a research farm in Tennessee, like close to where I grew up, that like wants people to come and work. The problem is that like the pay is really low and they don't supply healthcare. So if I did want to go and work, it would just be for a couple of months. Still, I would have to pay for some kind of healthcare just in case there was an accident or something, because I wouldn't be able to afford to pay out of pocket. But now there is, I will say one more thing is, since Obama was president in the U.S., there is a program where if you are lower income, if you're not making a high income, you can access some kind of healthcare. I just don't really know anything about this.
Yeah.
And here in Quebec, I can just have the public health insurance.
Even though you don't have a job, you have the health care.
Exactly. That's the difference. It's not connected to your job at all, which I actually, it's so much better and more comfortable. I will say in Quebec, and this is not, I think, always true in the rest of Canada, the healthcare system here is a bit, like, you can't always get the care that you want. Like, you have to wait a long time, or, I mean, I haven't really, that's one thing in the US when I had healthcare, is that everything is very fast, very, like, clean, very efficient. You can go to the doctor the next day.
Oh, good. I never know that.
Yeah, it's super nice. I mean, it's very, like, I think because they're all the doctors' offices and the hospitals are all, like, for profit, and like they have a lot of money, so it's like everything is really nice and fast. Yeah, it's just so expensive. It
doesn't match with my understanding, because I've heard that even in US you need to wait a lot of time in the line to see a doctor, but you're saying no, there is not.
Maybe it depends where. And it would be interesting to speak with other people that, like, have lived in other cities, especially in, like, New York or, I don't know, in the US, because maybe that's the case, but if you have an insurance with your job, it will be, like, pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean,
public transportation.
At least some cities in the US have the option of, like, transport, like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, maybe Boston would have, maybe Philadelphia, but otherwise it's like the main mode of transport is with a car, which I think it makes the US a very hard country to visit, because unless you're going to one of those cities that has transport, then how, like, if you're visiting, you have to rent a car, like, that's that's crazy.
I see. I heard that in US people have carry gun, so for me as Iranian person is some kind of, horrified that you can have gun. What else if I just have some discussion with you in the street and you just shot me, and is that right? People use it regularly, or I don't know, even is it safe to walk on the street around midnight? Because for example here in Canada you're safe even you're walking on 2 a.m. So what about the US?
So where I grew up, it's very, very much the case that, like, everyone's, all my friends' parents in high school, they all have guns.
Do you have?
No. Okay. So I think it's also, you have to remember that, like, maybe I'm giving a biased opinion because my mom's Canadian. So, like, I grew up kind of, I don't know, like, she maybe influenced me a little bit. So no one in my family ever had a gun. But I did see them a lot as a kid, because they would be, I don't know, up in the house of my friends. Yeah. It was like my dad, or my friend's dad's gun or something. But I never had, like, it does happen, you'll be just in the supermarket and you'll see the guy next to you has, like, a gun on his hip. And to me, that, like, scares me a little bit. But I never had an encounter with someone, like a violent encounter where someone tried to. Yeah, so I never felt unsafe in.
Some people kill someone else. What's the punishment for that? Is that execution or it's just a prison?
That's a good question, because that really depends on the state. And in the states in Tennessee, maybe it's different, but my family is now they were living in Alabama and then now Mississippi, both in the, like, deep south, where there's a lot of guns and a lot of gun violence. And there they still have the death penalty.
So have you ever worked in US?
Never professionally. I've worked in, like, cafes.
Because I always heard that the job opportunities are extremely good in US, and many people in Middle East think that, okay, if I wanna grow up, if I wanna just promote, I should go to US, and maybe in Canada there are not a lot of opportunities for me. So do you think this way?
So that's actually what I'm thinking about a lot now, because I'm looking for a job, and I don't know if I'll stay in Canada or go back to the US. Like I'm lucky that I can look in both countries. I will say there are many more positions just for what I'm looking at in the US, but I assume that's mostly because there's just a larger population. So there's more businesses, there's more organizations, because it's just way more people that live in the US.
So you think that it's kind of proportion? People, jobs?
I wonder if it is. I mean, because I also hear that too, that like there are way more opportunities in the US, and I think it also depends on the industry. Like probably in finance and in tech, I would say there are more in the US, but I also don't know. I'm just guessing. So,
yeah. Do you have anything in your mind that I forgot to ask and you want to mention with our audience?
Yeah. I guess I kind of touched on this, but one thing I've really liked about being in Montreal, and I think this is true in many cities in Canada, is that compared to the like city where I grew up, it's way more international. Like I don't know, there's like many more immigrants, I would say, which I really like, because you feel
you feel
like you can, I don't know, you like, you hear in Montreal, you're walking downtown and you hear like 5 different languages in 5 minutes, you know, and it was very similar in Germany. Like, I mean, I think it's just easier to make friends there with other international people, so I was kind of got used to meeting other people from other countries, and that's something that I've also gotten to do here in Montreal. Now, maybe in the US, I just wasn't like looking for it as much, and I also come from more of like a rural area, so there's definitely less.
Yeah,
I mean, there's more immigration from South America and Central America, but.
ارین, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure for me, and I guess that our audience will enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.